Hello my friend, I'm Max Eberly and welcome to day 4 of my free Pool Mastery Boot Camp. Day 1 we talked about controlling our hands and the cue. Day 2 we talked about finding the stroking line. Day 3 we talked about setting up consistently on the stroking line and doing some practice strokes. And now on day 4 we're going to talk about the actual stroke. Okay, so the basic idea is that your stroke is a throwing motion, just like any other sport that has a ball. So, in essence, what you're doing is you're throwing the cue stick without letting go. So here's my backswing and then my follow through. So what you don't want to do is stop at the cue ball. You'll see a lot of players will do something like this. And just stop right there or pull back. It's not a good habit to get into. You'll find you'll have a lot of problems if you do that. What you want to do is get in the habit of actually following through, right through the cue ball. Just like that. So it's almost as if the cue ball is not even there. Focus on your actual arm and throwing your arm as if the cue ball is already attached to the tip of your cue. You're just throwing it right towards your ghost ball, right down the stroking line. Okay, so this whole idea about finding the stroking line and setting up on the stroking line is that that's the line you actually want to stroke down. So that's really an important point to think about, because a lot of times you'll see a player who gets set up and then at the last minute they'll stroke on a different line than the stroking line. And that's going to cause a lot of misses. If there's any doubt in your mind that you're going to make the ball, that you're going to see that causes a lot of players to steer the cue. So the whole point behind finding the stroking line is to actually stroke on that line. So that's really important. If you just remember that, you're going to make a lot more balls. Okay, so find your stroking line, get down. And that speaks to another point I want to bring up, is keep your head still. That's going to help your body stay still, and it's going to help you just deliver a good stroke on the stroking line. So keep your head still, throw the cue, and those 2 pointers right there are going to work wonders for your game. Follow through. You also want to have a nice backswing. So the harder you hit it, the further back you're going to pull on the cue, back here. Pretty much your stroke is going to pretty much stay the same regardless of what you're doing with the cue ball, but keep in mind that if you're going to hit the ball soft, you don't have to pull back all the way back here. You can just pull back a little bit. And it's going to help give you a nice forward motion on your stroke. The idea of being level on your stroke is kind of a myth in the game of pool, because really you're not going to have a level stroke per se. You're actually going to stroke down into the cue ball most of the time, and even a lot of pros and instructors, they just kind of gloss over this issue by saying have a level stroke. And that's really just a way to get people to stop shooting down, because a lot of beginners kind of have this problem where they're shooting down on the ball. So the immediate reaction is to say, okay, you want a level cue stick. But actually you're very rarely going to even see a world champion hit the cue ball perfectly level. Except on like a follow shot. I get into that in detail on the strokes in my DVD, but keep in mind right here, watch what happens. When I pull back, my hand is actually up. See how the tip is down on the follow through? So your hand actually swings forward and then up, and the tip goes down. So it's actually very close to level, most of your strokes, unless you're going to do an elevated shot, like you're shooting off the rails. Then you definitely want to shoot down into the ball. You know, when the situation requires, you want to shoot down or elevated, or say on a jump shot. So you're going to be close to level on your strokes, but it doesn't have to be perfectly level. But watch the follow through on the follow shot. That's actually a lot more level than say a draw shot where you're actually going to shoot down into the ball. But all those, even though the stroke is slightly different, they have the similarities of a backswing and a follow-through right through the cue ball, and keeping your head still, keeping your body still, and staying on the stroking line. So find your stroking line, pull back, and follow through all the way. Keep your body still, keep your head still. You're going to make a lot more balls, have a lot more fun. So stay tuned for day 5 of my free Pool Mastery Bootcamp. Practice hard, and I'll see you then.